In court, my grandson pointed at me and shouted, "Grandma has been lying to you all." The whole room froze. That's how it happened, right there in the crowded Fulton County Courthouse in Atlanta, Georgia. I can still hear the echo of his little voice bouncing off those tall marble walls. My hands went cold, my throat locked up, and for a second, I thought I had stopped breathing. I was sitting at the defendant's table, surrounded by strangers, lawyers, and my own daughters who couldn't even look me in the eye. And then, out of nowhere, Malcolm Jr., only 10 years old, stood on shaky legs, pointed his tiny finger at me, and told the world I was a liar. The judge's gavel slammed so hard it rattled the water glasses. Gasps filled the room. People leaned forward like they were watching the last scene of a movie. But this wasn't fiction. This was my life, my family, my blood, turning against me in front of everybody. Now let me ask you, my listeners, have you ever been betrayed by someone so close to you it left you frozen in place? If it were your grandchild pointing at you in front of a judge, what would you do? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because today I'm telling you how I ended up in that courtroom and why my own grandson became the voice that broke our family wide open. But before I get ahead of myself, let me take you back, because this didn't start in the courthouse. No, this started years earlier, at my own dining room table when Thanksgiving dinner turned into a battlefield. The silence in that courtroom was heavier than chains. You could almost hear hearts pounding, not just mine, but everyone's. The judge leaned forward, his glasses sliding down the bridge of his nose. He looked straight at my grandson. "Young man, what did you just say?" His voice wasn't angry yet, but it carried the weight of thunder. Malcolm's knees knocked together, but he didn't back down. His little chest rose and fell like he had just run a race. "Grandma's been lying." People whispered. My oldest daughter, Denise, buried her face in her hands. Carla, the younger one, stared at me with wide, watery eyes, like she wanted to believe it wasn't true, but couldn't. My lawyer tugged my sleeve, whispering, "Stay calm, Claudine. Don't react." Stay calm? How can a grandmother stay calm when her own grandson is throwing her into the fire in front of the whole city? I wanted to scream. I wanted to pull Malcolm into my arms and beg him to stop, but I couldn't move. I just sat there, my palms sweating against the wood table, every eye in the room slicing into me. And then the judge slammed the gavel again. Bam! "This court will have order," he barked. "Son, you don't speak unless spoken to. Do you understand?" Malcolm nodded quickly, but his finger was still pointed straight at me, like I was the villain in his story. And maybe I was. Now let me stop here and ask you, if your child or grandchild exposed a family secret in front of strangers, would you protect the truth or protect your pride? Comment truth if you think secrets should always come out, or family if you believe some things should stay buried. The judge turned to me next, his tone sharpened like a knife slicing through the air. "Mrs. Rivers, what is your grandson talking about? Is there something this court needs to know?" I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My throat was dry, my body trembling. And in that moment, with all eyes locked on me, the past I had buried for decades began clawing its way to the surface. My ears were ringing. My grandson's words didn't just hang in the air, they sliced through it. The courtroom felt smaller, hotter. The hum of the ceiling fans couldn't drown out the whispers that crawled across the benches like wildfire. "Lying? About what?" someone muttered behind me. "She's been hiding something," another voice hissed. The judge's eyes burned holes into me. "Mrs. Rivers, this court needs answers. Did your grandson speak the truth just now or not?" I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles went white. Denise shifted uncomfortably beside the prosecutor. Her lips curled like she already knew the answer, like she had been waiting for this day. Carla wouldn't even look at me. Her head was bowed, tears sliding down her cheeks. But Malcolm, oh, my sweet Malcolm. His little face was red with courage and fear all mixed together. He wasn't just a boy anymore. In that moment, he was the judge, the jury, the executioner, and I was on trial in front of my own blood. My lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, the boy is young. Perhaps he's confused, or... Confused? Malcolm's voice cracked, but it carried across the room. I'm not confused. Grandma's been lying, and I can prove it. The room erupted. Reporters scribbled in notepads. People gasped louder I'd ever heard, and the bailiff stepped forward, unsure if he should silence a child or let him speak. The judge's gavel cracked again. Enough, he roared. This court will hear the boy, but only under order. Mrs. Rivers, you will remain silent until I ask you to speak. Silent. That's all I had been for years. Silent while secrets rotted under my roof. Silent while my family tore itself apart. Silent. Until now. Viewers, I want to ask you directly, what do you think the judge should have done here? Should he have silenced a child to protect courtroom order, or let Malcolm expose the truth, no matter how messy it got? Type speak if you think he was right to let the boy talk, or silence if you believe the judge should have shut him down. The gavel came down one last time, echoing like a final warning. The judge leaned in, his voice lower, colder, and sharper than before. Son, what exactly has your grandma been lying about? And right there, I felt my entire world shift, because I knew once Malcolm opened his mouth again, nothing in our family or in that courtroom would ever be the same. And that, my friends, was just the beginning. What my grandson revealed next shook generations of secrets out into the open. If you think you've heard it all, trust me, you haven't. Don't miss what comes next in Voices of Auntie Grace. Subscribe right now so you're not left behind when the truth unfolds. And tell me in the comments, do you think Malcolm saved us or destroyed us? The courtroom went so quiet you could have heard a pin drop. Even the fluorescent lights above seemed to hum softer, like they too were waiting to hear what Malcolm would say next. I stared at my grandson, my heart racing. He was only 10, yet in that moment, he looked older, braver, stronger than I'd ever known him to be. His little hands clenched into fists, his jaw trembling. Tell the court, the judge urged, leaning forward. What has your grandma been lying about? His lips parted. His little voice, though shaky, was clear. She lied about Grandpa, about what really happened to him, and about the money. The room exploded. Gasps, shouts, even laughter from the far benches, as though this was entertainment. The bailiff had to bark for order. My chest tightened, like someone had dropped a stone inside me. I wanted to scream, no, to run across the room and cover his mouth with my hands. But my lawyer's warning rang in my ears. Stay calm, Claudine. Don't react. Denise sat back smug, her arms crossed like she had just won a long-fought war. Carla covered her face, shoulders trembling. And me? I froze in my seat, knowing deep inside this was only the beginning. Because if Malcolm revealed everything he knew, the past I thought was buried 20 years ago would rise up and tear through all of us. I locked eyes with my grandson, silently begging him not to continue. But Malcolm didn't look at me. He looked at the judge, steady and unshaken. Tell the court that the judge. The end.
It was 2 years before that courtroom explosion, 2 years before my grandson became the voice that shattered my silence. And yet looking back, I should have seen the storm forming. It was Thanksgiving in Charlotte, North Carolina, the first holiday after my husband, Howard, had passed. Normally, Thanksgiving in my house was a celebration. Family, food, laughter, even neighbors dropping by for pie. But that year, it felt different. The air was heavy, like everyone was forcing themselves to be thankful when deep inside, they were boiling with questions. I remember standing in the kitchen, carving a turkey that suddenly felt too big for such a small, broken family. Denise, my oldest, was helping arrange the dishes on the table. She had inherited Howard's sharp jaw and sharper tongue. Always quick to argue, always certain she was right. Carla, my youngest, floated around the living room, fussing with the decorations and pretending nothing was wrong. But I knew better. Thanksgiving was supposed to bring families closer. That year, it did the opposite. When we sat down around the dining room table, Malcolm Jr. said the prayer. His little voice was soft, but the words hung heavy. Thank you, Lord, for bringing us together, even though Grandpa isn't here anymore. I opened my eyes and saw Denise staring at me, her lips pressed tight. Carla avoided eye contact, focusing instead on passing the mashed potatoes. And just like that, the meal turned into a battlefield. Mom, Denise said, her fork stabbing into her plate, we need to talk about Dad's will. Carla groaned, not tonight, Denise. Please, can't we just have one meal without bringing this up? Denise slammed her fork down. One meal? Carla, are you blind? Mom's been dodging this for months. Dad's gone, and we don't even know where half of his money or properties went. You don't find that strange? The table went silent. Malcolm fidgeted with his food, his little ears catching every word even though nobody noticed him. My hands trembled on my lap, but I forced myself to speak. Denise, I said quietly, this is neither the time nor the place. It's exactly the time, she snapped. You keep saying Dad left everything in order, but no lawyer, no paperwork, no explanation. Why is that, Mom? Carla reached across the table, touching her sister's hand. Stop attacking her. Dad just passed. We're all grieving. Denise pulled her hand back like she'd touched fire. Grieving doesn't explain missing documents. Grieving doesn't explain Mom suddenly being in charge of assets none of us even knew existed. I swallowed hard. My throat burned. Howard and I had made choices that seemed wise at the time, choices meant to protect this family. But now, those choices were being twisted into accusations. Enough, I whispered, but my voice was too soft. Nobody heard me. Carla's face reddened. So what, you think Mom stole from us? Is that what you're saying? Denise laughed bitterly. I think Mom knows more than she's telling us, and if you weren't so desperate to stay in her good graces, you'd see it too. The air cracked with tension. The kids kept eating quietly, pretending not to notice, but I saw Malcolm's eyes dart between his mother and aunt. He was listening. He was always listening. By the time dessert was served, Denise had stopped pretending to be civil. She pushed her chair back and stood up. I want answers, Mom. Where's the will? Where's the paperwork? Dad didn't just vanish into thin air. He had properties, investments, accounts. What happened to all of it? Carla shouted back, She doesn't owe you an explanation. She's our mother. Denise turned on her sister. And you're a fool if you think love excuses lies. The room went silent. My chest ached like it might collapse. My daughters, my pride, my joy, standing on opposite ends of the table looking at me like I was the rope in their tug of war. Enough, I said louder this time, forcing authority into my voice. Both of you, sit down. But they didn't. Denise stormed toward the door, her coat already in her hand. I'll find the truth myself, and when I do, don't think for a second I'll stay quiet about it. The door slammed so hard, the windows rattled. Carla sat back down, her hands covering her face. I sat there too, staring at the empty chair where my daughter had been.
The turkey had gone cold, the pies untouched, the laughter we used to share drowned out by suspicion. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat alone in the living room, the quiet pressing down on me. I thought about Howard, about the promises we had made, about the secrets I had kept. And I thought about Denise, how far she was willing to go to dig into the past. That's when I heard it. A soft rustle at the front door. Footsteps too light to be threatening, too deliberate to be random. I froze. For a moment, I thought maybe Denise had come back, but when I opened the door, nobody was there. Instead, lying on the doormat was a plain white envelope. No name, no return address. Just one word written across it in shaky black ink. Claudine. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The envelope felt heavier than it should have, as though it carried not just paper, but the weight of everything I had tried to keep hidden. I didn't open it that night. I couldn't. But I knew, deep inside, that whatever was inside that envelope would either protect my family or destroy it forever. And that was the Thanksgiving that split my family in two. One daughter accusing me, the other defending me, and a mysterious envelope left at my door like a warning. So, what do you think was inside that envelope? Drop your guesses in the comments, because in Chapter 3, the secrets of my past with Howard and a man named Reggie Thornton begin to surface. Subscribe now to Voices of Auntie Grace so you don't miss the truth when it finally comes out.
When people see a grandmother sitting in court, they think her life was calm, steady, maybe filled with rocking chairs and Sunday church dresses. But my life was built on choices I made long before Malcolm was born. Choices that started in Detroit, Michigan, the city where I first became a wife, and later, a mother. Howard Rivers was not a simple man. To the outside world, he was charming, dependable, the kind of man who worked with his hands during the day and came home smelling of sawdust and motor oil. But behind that smile, behind those brown eyes that could convince anyone to trust him, Howard carried secrets. We met in Detroit back in the late 70s. I was young, working at a diner off Woodward Avenue, saving tips in a jar, hoping for a future better than the one I'd been handed. Howard was a regular. He'd come in every Tuesday and Friday, sit at the counter and order coffee and cherry pie. He'd leave big tips, always in cash and always with a wink. He wasn't the kind of man you ignored, and soon I didn't. We married in 1980, and for a while, life felt normal. We had Denise first, then Carla a few years later. We bought a little brick house with a fenced yard. It should have been perfect, but perfect never lasts. Howard started working nights. He said it was construction jobs, side hustles to make ends meet. But the money was too good, the hours too odd. New suits showed up in our closet, bills were paid before I even saw them, and suddenly he had business meetings with men I'd never met. One of those men was Reggie Thornton. Reggie was slick. He drove Cadillacs when everyone else was driving Fords. He wore diamond watches and silk shirts in the middle of Detroit winters. When Howard introduced us, Reggie's handshake lingered too long, his smile too wide. "This is my business partner," he told me. "We've got plans bigger than Detroit." I smiled politely, but inside I felt a chill. Something about Reggie screamed danger. And I was right. By 1992, Howard announced we were moving. "Atlanta's the new city," he said, gripping my shoulders. "Opportunities, money, a better life for the girls. Trust me, Claudine, this is what's best for us." We packed our lives into boxes and drove south. Denise cried the whole way, angry about leaving her friends. Carla, still young, clutched a teddy bear and stared out the window.
I stared at Howard, wondering if this move was really about opportunity or something he didn't want to say out loud. Atlanta was supposed to be a fresh start, but Reggie followed us there. He showed up at our new house like he owned it, laughing too loud, always slapping Howard on the back like they were brothers. I'd hear them whispering in the garage, their voices low, the smell of cigar smoke slipping under the door. And each time, Howard would come back inside with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. One night, I confronted him. "Howard," I said, "what are you into with Reggie? Don't lie to me." He looked at me long and hard, then kissed my forehead. "I'm doing what I have to do to keep this family safe. That's all you need to know." But safe never felt so unsafe. The years rolled by. Denise grew into a strong-willed teenager, always questioning, always digging. Carla stayed quiet, gentle, more trusting. And I kept my silence. I told myself I was protecting my daughters, but silence has a price. Fast forward to the night Denise barged into my house, long after Howard's funeral. She carried a box of old family things I had packed away. She dropped it on the kitchen table, dust flying everywhere. "Mom," she said, her voice sharp, "do you want to explain this?" I opened the box. Inside was Howard's old leather-bound Bible. My breath caught. I hadn't seen it in years. Denise flipped it open to the center, where the pages were thicker, uneven. She slid out a folded piece of paper tucked between psalms. My heart nearly stopped. It was a will. Howard's handwriting. His signature half finished, but no witnesses, no notary stamp, just words on paper that didn't count in court, but meant everything to a family already on fire. "Why didn't you tell us about this?" Denise demanded. Carla, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, whispered, "Maybe Mom didn't know." But I did know. I had hidden it years earlier, telling myself I'd protect them from the truth. But there it was, in Denise's hands, like a ghost rising out of the grave. I wanted to snatch it back, to tear it into pieces, to burn it before anyone else saw. But Denise's eyes locked on mine. She wasn't going to let this go. "Mom," she said, her voice trembling, both anger and hurt. "What else are you hiding from us?" And I sat there, frozen, knowing that the walls I had built to keep my family safe were about to collapse. And that unsigned will was just the beginning. Howard's partnership with Reggie Thornton, our move to Atlanta, the secrets I buried, all of it was now crawling back into the light. What do you think Denise found in that Bible, besides the will? Comment your guesses below. And don't miss Chapter 4 on Voices of Auntie Grace, where Christmas turned into betrayal, and one drunken argument left me clutching a locket that changed everything. Subscribe now because the next twist is one you won't forget.
Christmas was supposed to be the one holiday that healed us. No matter the fights, the accusations, the bitterness that had grown since Howard's death, I believed, maybe foolishly, that Christmas could still bring us together. That year, we gathered in Houston, Texas, at Carla's home. She'd insisted on hosting, saying a change of scenery would make things easier. I remember stepping off the plane, clutching Malcolm's hand, praying in my heart that this trip would turn out different, that maybe, just maybe, the arguing would stop. The house was beautiful, decked out with garlands and twinkling lights. Carla had gone all out, baking cookies, hanging stockings, even hiring a local choir to sing carols in the neighborhood. It should have been magical. But inside those walls, tension was waiting like a storm cloud ready to burst. Denise arrived late, as usual, carrying more baggage in her expression than in her suitcase. She hugged her son Malcolm, but barely acknowledged me. Carla tried to smooth things over, pouring glasses of wine and turning up the Christmas music. For a while it worked. The kids played with new toys. We sat around the tree, unwrapping gifts. Laughter bubbled here and there, but it was fragile, like glass that could shatter with the slightest crack. And then Carla poured herself one glass of wine too many. Her cheeks flushed, her words slurred. She sat across from me, staring hard, her smile gone. The room went quiet when she finally spoke. "Tell us the truth, Mom," she said, her voice loud, cutting through the Christmas songs. "You've been playing us this whole time, haven't you?" I stiffened. "Carla, not now. The children are here." "No, now," she insisted, slamming her glass onto the table. Wine splashed onto the tablecloth, staining the snowflake patterns red. "Denise is right. You manipulated Dad's money. You turned us against each other, and you sit there acting innocent while this family crumbles." Denise folded her arms, leaning back. For once, she didn't argue. She just let Carla speak for both of them. The children froze, sensing the change in the air. Malcolm especially sat quietly in the corner with his tablet on his lap. Nobody noticed him tapping the screen, his eyes wide and alert. I shook my head, my throat closing up. "Carla, sweetheart, you don't understand." "Stop calling me sweetheart," she shouted. "You lied to us. You lied about Dad, about the money, about everything. Why should we believe anything you say anymore?" The room spun. I stood, my hands trembling. I reached for the nearest chair but missed. The room tilted and I fell. Gasps erupted as I clutched at my blouse, pulling free a necklace I had hidden for years, a gold locket that swung open as I hit the ground. Inside, 2 tiny photos stared back at the world. One was Howard, younger, smiling the way he hadn't smiled in years. The other, a face my daughters had never seen before. I heard Carla gasp. Denise leaned closer, eyes narrowing. She demanded, "Who is that?" But I couldn't answer. My body gave out, and the last thing I saw before the room went black was Malcolm's tablet pointed straight at me, the red recording light glowing like a warning. I woke hours later in Carla's guest room, the house quiet, the children asleep. My head ached, my chest still heavy, but what weighed most was the knowledge that secrets don't stay buried forever. Carla and Denise had seen the locket. Malcolm had recorded everything I didn't even know he had captured, and I was running out of time to keep the past from swallowing us all whole. And that Christmas was the night everything changed. The night the locket fell open, the night my daughter saw a face they didn't recognize, and the night my grandson captured it all without anyone realizing. Do you think what was inside that locket? And who was the second face staring back at us? Drop your guesses in the comments below. And don't miss Chapter 5 on Voices of Auntie Grace, where that very locket reveals a note so dangerous, it puts us all back on a collision course with Howard's past. Subscribe right now so you don't miss the twist that nearly tore us apart forever.
After that Christmas in Houston, I thought things couldn't possibly get worse. I told myself families fight. Daughters say things they don't mean, and children eventually forget what they see. But I was wrong. Children don't forget, not when the truth stares them in the face. And Malcolm, my sweet, curious grandson, had proof hidden in his tablet and in his hands.
When we returned to Atlanta, Carla tried to smooth things over. She said Denise had exaggerated, that maybe I'd fainted because of stress. But Denise didn't buy it. She called me almost daily, demanding answers about the locket. I avoided her questions, praying she'd drop it. But Denise wasn't the type to let anything go. And Malcolm, he couldn't let go either. One chilly January afternoon, while I was napping in my bedroom, Malcolm sneaked into my jewelry box. He was only 10, but he had the determination of a grown man on a mission. Later, he told me the locket had called to him. He wanted to know why his grandma carried it so close to her chest that night. When he opened it again, the photos were still there. Howard's younger face, and that stranger's face none of my children recognized. But this time, Malcolm pressed gently on the back, and something popped loose. A tiny folded piece of paper slid out, yellowed with age, barely the size of a postage stamp. His little hand shook as he opened it. The words, scribbled in Howard's handwriting, were simple but chilling. "If I disappear, Reggie knows the truth." Malcolm read it twice, maybe 3 times. His heart raced. He didn't fully understand what it meant, but he knew one thing. Grandma wasn't just keeping secrets. She was hiding something dangerous. Instead of bringing it to me, Malcolm slipped the note into his pocket. He carried it like a treasure, or maybe a weapon. And the first person he showed it wasn't me, or even his mother. It was Mrs. Johnson, his best friend's mom. Mrs. Johnson was the kind of woman who knew everybody in church. She wore her hats big, her voice louder, and her opinions even louder than that. When Malcolm showed her the note after Sunday school, her eyes widened and she crossed herself like she'd just seen the devil. Lord have mercy. "Child, do you know what this means?" Malcolm shook his head. "It means Grandma's lying, right?" Mrs. Johnson pressed her lips together. "It means your granddaddy might not be where folks think he is. And if that man Reggie knows the truth, then, honey, this family's sitting on a time bomb." Within a week, the rumors began. It started small, in the church pews. Sister Green told Brother Ellis that Claudine's family had money problems. Brother Ellis told Deacon Charles that Claudine had a secret man on the side. By the next Sunday, half the congregation was side-eyeing me, whispering behind their bulletins. "Did you hear? Claudine's got another family. They say her husband didn't die at all. He ran. Word is, her grandson found proof." I sat there, hat pulled low, pretending not to hear, but inside, I was crumbling. My private life was turning into gossip for the whole church to feast on. One night after choir rehearsal, I overheard 2 women in the parking lot. "Child, they say Howard was seen in Memphis. Can you believe that?" "Memphis? That man's been dead for years." Dead or hiding. The words sliced through me like glass. My heart dropped into my stomach. Memphis. The city we used to pass through on road trips. The city Howard once called his backup plan. Could it be true? Could he really be alive? And just like that, the lie I built my life on threatened to collapse in daylight. And that's how the rumors turned deadly. A secret note, church gossip, and a neighbor swearing he saw my dead husband alive in Memphis. What do you believe? Was Howard really alive in Memphis, or was this just another cruel trick of memory? Type alive if you think he survived, or gone if you think he truly died years ago. Don't miss Chapter 6 on Voices of Auntie Grace, where the search for Howard takes us straight to Memphis and the night my grandson disappeared for hours with no explanation. Subscribe now because the next twist could be the most shocking yet.
The day Mr. Carter told me he saw Howard alive in Memphis, I prayed he was mistaken. I told myself grief can play tricks on the mind, that maybe he'd confused another man for my husband. But deep down, I knew better. Howard always had a way of slipping through cracks, and if anyone could fake a death and still be breathing years later, it was him. I wasn't the only one haunted by the rumor. Denise kept digging through paperwork, demanding answers, but it was Carla who broke first. One Saturday morning, she packed a bag, grabbed Malcolm by the hand, and told him, "We're going to find out for ourselves." They didn't tell me. I only learned later, after everything that happened, what they did that weekend. They drove 6 hours from Atlanta to Memphis, the highway stretching long and lonely. Malcolm sat in the back seat, clutching the locket and the folded note like sacred relics. Carla kept glancing at him in the rearview mirror, fear in her eyes. "Baby," she said, "if your grandpa really is alive, we need to know. But you have to promise me, don't say a word to your aunt, not to Grandma, not even to your friends. Do you understand?" Malcolm nodded, his face more serious than a child should ever be. "I won't tell. I just want the truth." When they pulled into Memphis, they headed straight for the diner Mr. Carter had mentioned. It was an old place, neon lights buzzing, the kind of spot truckers stop at in the middle of the night. The waitress, an older woman with tired eyes, recognized the photo of Howard immediately. "Oh yeah," she said, setting down a pot of coffee. "That man was here a few weeks back. Sat right there in the corner booth with another feller. Ordered black coffee and eggs. Didn't say much, but I remember those eyes. Hard to forget eyes like that." Carla's heart dropped. Malcolm leaned forward, whispering, "So it's true." The waitress frowned. "Funny thing, though. He left in a hurry when a black car pulled up outside. Didn't even finish his food." Carla pressed for more, but the woman just shrugged. "Sorry, honey, that's all I got." From the diner, they checked motels. Room clerks gave vague answers. Some swore they'd seen a man matching Howard's description. One motel manager even pulled an old receipt. Howard Rivers, paid cash. Carla's hands shook as she showed it to Malcolm. "He's alive," she whispered. "Oh my God, he's really alive." But if Howard was alive, why had he left us? Why fake his death? Why let his daughters cry over a coffin that might have been empty? The questions multiplied faster than the answers. That night, Carla and Malcolm checked into a small motel outside the city. Malcolm clutched his tablet close, whispering to himself as he played back the Christmas recording. "Grandma knows something. She has to." Carla tried to calm him, but she couldn't calm herself. She stared out the window, convinced someone was watching them. And she wasn't wrong. Because by the next morning, Reggie Thornton knew they were there. Carla noticed it at the gas station. A black SUV parked across the lot, engine running, 2 men inside. Every time she glanced their way, their eyes were on her. When she pulled out onto the road, the SUV followed, not too close, not too far. Just enough. Her hands gripped the wheel tighter. "Don't look back, baby," she whispered to Malcolm. "Just keep your head down." But Malcolm couldn't. He stared out the window, his young heart pounding as the SUV's reflection followed them in the side mirror. Carla drove fast, taking turns she didn't need to, circling blocks, pulling into crowded streets. Finally, after nearly an hour of cat and mouse, the SUV was gone. But the damage had been done. They knew. Reggie knew. Carla panicked. She told Malcolm to stay in the motel room while she stepped outside to make a call. But when she came back, the room was empty. Malcolm was gone. The bed was untouched, the door still locked from the inside, the tablet lying on the table, but no sign of the boy. Carla screamed his name, running down the motel hallway, banging on doors. The clerk swore nobody had seen him leave. The parking lot was empty. It was as if Malcolm had vanished into thin air. For 3 hours, Carla searched the streets of Memphis, crying his name into the night air. She called Denise, who cursed her for taking the boy in the first place. She called me, sobbing so hard I couldn't even understand her words. And then, just before midnight, Malcolm walked back into the motel lobby, his face pale, his clothes dusty, his eyes wide with something he refused to explain. "Where were you?" Carla cried, pulling him into her arms. Malcolm just shook his head. "Grandma was right. Grandpa's not dead, but we're not supposed to know." Carla's blood ran cold. "Who told you that?" But Malcolm never answered. To this day, I don't know what happened to him in those missing hours. I don't know who he saw or what he heard. All I know is that when they returned to Atlanta, my grandson wasn't the same boy anymore. He carried secrets in his eyes that no child should ever have to carry. And I knew then, the past wasn't just haunting me. It had reached out its claws and taken hold of the next generation. And that's how my grandson vanished in Memphis and came back carrying words that chilled me to the bone. Grandpa's not dead. What do you think happened to Malcolm during those missing hours? Did he see Howard, or did someone else get to him first? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Voices of Auntie Grace, because Chapter 7 will take us back to court and the day Reggie Thornton himself walked into that courtroom with proof Howard never died.
The courtroom was colder that morning, though maybe it was just me shivering inside. I sat at the defendant's table in Fulton County, my palms pressed flat against the wood, my lawyer whispering strategy in my ear. But I couldn't focus on his words. All I could hear was Malcolm's voice in my memory, ringing loud and clear. "Grandma has been lying to you all." Now the court was set to hear from my daughters, one ready to bury me, the other unsure whether to defend me or join her sister's fire. The judge entered, his robe flowing like a shadow. "Court is back in session," he announced, his gavel striking once. "We will now hear testimony from the family." Denise was the first to take the stand. My eldest child, my strong-willed daughter, the one who had inherited not just Howard's eyes, but his suspicion. She sat upright, her chin high, and when the clerk swore her in, she didn't flinch. The prosecutor asked her to speak on what she knew. Denise didn't hesitate. "My father, Howard Rivers, supposedly passed away 2 years ago, but to this day, no clear paperwork, no verified cause of death, no closure has been provided, and I believe my mother, Claudine Rivers, knows why." Her words cut deeper than knives. Denise continued, her voice gaining strength. "She's kept documents from us, hidden assets, and even carried around a locket with another man's picture inside. My mother has lied about my father's business dealings, about his finances, and about whether or not he's even dead." The courtroom buzzed with whispers. The prosecutor let Denise's words hang, knowing they had weight. Then came the question that made my stomach churn. "Denise, in your opinion, did your mother participate in deception regarding your father's death?" Denise looked straight at me. No fear, no hesitation. "Yes, and I believe she's still lying to this court right now." I gripped the table so hard my fingers ached. My lawyer leaned in, whispering, "Don't react, let it pass." But how could I not? My own daughter was painting me as a criminal in front of strangers. When the prosecutor sat down, my attorney rose to cross-examine. "Miss Rivers," he said carefully, "you've made very serious accusations.
Do you have any actual proof that your mother faked your father's death? Denise's lips curled. Proof? I have her behavior, her secrets, and even a child who stood in this very room and said she was lying. Isn't that enough? The judge raised his hand. This is not about children's outbursts in this Rivers. Stick to facts. Denise sat back, smug but silent. Then came Carla's turn. My younger daughter looked smaller on that witness stand, fragile in a way I hadn't seen since she was a girl. Her hands twisted in her lap, her eyes darting between me and her sister. "Carla," the prosecutor began, "do you believe your mother has lied about your father's death?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. I don't know." Denise scoffed from her seat. Carla flinched, then forced herself to go on. "I know there are things that don't make sense. Papers missing, money we can't account for, and yes, I saw the locket. But I also know my mother. She raised us, she protected us, and I don't believe she would hurt us on purpose." The courtroom leaned forward, hungry for her words. "So you defend her?" the prosecutor pressed. Carla's eyes filled with tears. "I can't defend everything she's done, but I won't condemn her either. She's still my mother." My heart broke right there on that bench. One daughter against me, one torn in half, and me sitting silent, trapped between the past I created and the future it was now destroying. Then the doors at the back of the courtroom swung open. At first, nobody turned. The judge was speaking, the attorneys were shuffling papers, but when the footsteps echoed on the tile floor, heads began to shift. Murmurs rose. And then I saw him, Reggie Thornton. His suit was sharp, his walk confident, and his grin smug enough to make the bailiff tense. He didn't wait to be called. He strode right to the center of the courtroom, his voice carrying like a showman at a circus. "Your Honor," Reggie said, "I have information this court needs to hear." The judge banged his gavel. "Sir, this is highly irregular." "Highly irregular?" Reggie chuckled. "What's irregular is putting this woman on trial without the whole truth. And the truth, Judge, is this. Howard Rivers isn't dead." Gasps exploded across the courtroom. Reporters scrambled for their pens. Denise's jaw dropped. Carla's hand flew to her mouth. And me? My vision blurred, my chest tightened, and for a moment I thought I might collapse again. Because the one man I had prayed would stay buried in memory had just been dragged back into the light. And that was the day Reggie Thornton stormed into court with the words I feared most. Howard Rivers isn't dead. Do you believe him? Or was Reggie only stirring trouble to save himself? Type alive if you think Howard truly survived, or lie if you think Reggie was manipulating the court. Subscribe to Voices of Auntie Grace because Chapter 8 will reveal what happened when my own grandson took the stand and exposed the recordings, the note, and the locket that turned the courtroom upside down.
When Reggie Thornton declared that Howard wasn't dead, the courtroom erupted into chaos. The judge shouted for silence. Reporters scribbled like their pens were on fire. And I sat frozen in my chair, my breath shallow, my heart pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. I thought that was the worst of it. I thought nothing could top Reggie's entrance. But then, my grandson did something I will never forget. Malcolm Jr. rose from his seat. He wasn't asked to. He wasn't invited. He just stood, small, trembling, but determined. And with every eye turning to him, he said in a voice stronger than I expected, "I need to speak. I have proof." The judge's eyebrows shot up. "Son, this isn't a game. Sit down." But Malcolm shook his head. "It's not a game, Your Honor. I know what Grandma has been hiding." Gasps filled the room. Denise leaned forward, her hands clutching the bench. Carla whispered his name like a prayer, begging him to sit. But Malcolm didn't. He walked straight to the witness stand, his little sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. The bailiff looked to the judge, who hesitated, then sighed. "Very well. The boy will be sworn in. But be advised, young man, lying under oath is a serious crime." Malcolm lifted his right hand without flinching.
I swear to tell the truth." And then the floodgates opened. He started with the locket. Grandma's necklace isn't just jewelry. It had a note hidden inside. He held it up for the judge to see, the folded paper tucked carefully in his pocket. The clerk read the words aloud for the record. "If I disappear, Reggie knows the truth." The courtroom buzzed. Reggie grinned like a cat who had finally caught a mouse. Denise's face lit up, her suspicions confirmed. Carla buried her face in her hands, whispering, "Oh, Lord," over and over. But Malcolm wasn't done. He pulled out his tablet. "And this," he said, his voice firm, "is what happened at Christmas in Houston." He tapped the screen, and suddenly the courtroom filled with the sound of my daughter screaming, Carla accusing me of lies, Denise demanding the truth, and me collapsing as the locket fell open. The recording captured every word, every tear, every moment. The judge's gavel slammed, but it didn't silence the crowd. People leaned forward, jaws open, eyes wide. Even the court stenographer paused in disbelief. Malcolm's little voice cut through it all. "Grandma has been lying to protect Grandpa, and I think Grandpa is still alive." The words hit me like a hammer. My body trembled, my chest heavy with years of secrets pressing against my ribs. The judge turned his gaze on me, sharp as glass. "Mrs. Rivers, is this true? Did you lie to your family and to this court?" I couldn't speak. My throat closed, my hand shook. I wanted to deny it, to call Malcolm mistaken, but the evidence was there, the note, the recording, my silence. Denise stood up, shouting, "See? I told you! She's been covering for him this whole time." Carla sobbed, torn between defending me and believing the evidence. And Malcolm, my brave grandson, stared at me, not with hatred, but with disappointment. That look hurt more than any gavel, more than any accusation. The judge leaned forward, his voice low and commanding. "Mrs. Rivers, this court demands an answer. Have you been hiding the truth about Howard Rivers?" My lawyer whispered frantically, "Don't say a word, Claudine. Stay quiet. We can fight this." But I couldn't stay quiet anymore. My whole body trembled as I pushed myself to my feet. The courtroom went silent. Denise glared. Carla cried. Malcolm's eyes never left mine. I opened my mouth, my voice breaking into a whisper that carried across the room. "There's something you don't know about Howard." And then I stopped, because saying it out loud meant destroying everything. The judge's gavel pounded again. "Mrs. Rivers, this court requires the truth. What is it you're hiding?" But I couldn't answer. Not yet. Not in front of them all. The courtroom buzzed louder than before. People shouting questions, reporters scribbling headlines, my daughters leaning forward with desperate eyes, and me standing there, my secrets still locked inside, knowing the next words out of my mouth would change every life in that room. And that was the moment my grandson exposed me, leaving me with no place to hide. The note, the will, the recording, all laid bare for the world to see. And when the judge demanded the truth, all I could whisper was, "There's something you don't know about Howard."